all, and welcome back to another thrilling episode of Off the Dome. I'm your humble leader, Jordan Brennan. With me for the very first time is our Dazzling DM. Say hi, Dazzling DM.
Hi, Dazzling DM.
Hey, thank you so much. This is so exciting. I've been following you on TikTok forever. I don't know if that's actually true, but
yeah,
you've been on TikTok for a lot longer than I have been on TikTok.
Yeah.
Which is very cool because I joined very late because I once said that TikTok was like Vine but worse, and I have lived to eat those words. As someone who pays for a lot of things with the money I make on TikTok now, boy was I wrong, huh? Anyway, it's so good to chat I was gonna say for the first time in person, but that's not true, and we're not in person. We're off to a great start. Anyway,
it's all good.
You are Dice and Autism on, yes, I think all platforms, basically.
Yep,
definitely
on
TikTok,
all the socials. Yeah. Definitely on TikTok.
I guess. Look, it doesn't feel like. I don't want to assume. How did you come to that name?
Well, it started when I was born, and then I got the autism and everything. And then later on, I found out I was ADHD and everything. So my brain was like, how do I include ADHD into the autism? But then everyone was just like, no, Dice, don't. It's already a good name and everything.
Yeah. And then obviously the Dice part of it, you play the TTRPGs.
Yes.
And have been making I hate saying little sketches because that feels insulting, but little TikTok videos of I'm assuming elsewhere, but of conversations that DMs have had of wild things your players want to do, make a dragon feel pretty.
Yes, I love that video so much. I never thought that video was gonna go viral and everything because I like subverting tropes of D&D and everything. I know everyone says oh, let's seduce the dragon and all that stuff, but let's actually put perspective on it. If we're gonna seduce the dragon, then let's build on this full romance, full gun, and let's see if the dragon wants to feel pretty or not, because every monster deserves to feel pretty.
That makes sense to me. Yeah, I'm also often surprised by things that really explode. I talked to a Sound of the Forest somewhat recently, and she told me how many teeth snails have, and it turns out it's up to 20,000, which is too many. Anyway, I made a video about it, and it's now by far the most popular video I've ever made. Is her talking about snails on my channel, which,
oh god,
yeah. Look, if I could figure out the algorithm, I say this, we're recording this on February 2nd. Who knows if there will be an algorithm 3 days from now?
Yep, that's true. But I think that's just kind of the nature of it. I always like to call the algorithm wild magic and everything, because you never know what's going to hit, and you may have a feeling oh, this might be a hit, and then it just kind of flops. But then it's always reassuring when you try out on other different platforms. This is hey, this actually kind of works and stuff. So it's just a wild magic table and everything.
Yeah, it is definitely one of those things where I'm I think this is really good. I'm going to post it on multiple platforms, because TikTok is where I post the most. And then I'll post it Instagram, and it's oh, it's hundreds of thousands of views, and I don't have very many followers. And then I look over at TikTok, and it's 50 people have seen it. And it's
yep.
But the audiences are the same for this.
It's weird. It's so weird.
But yeah, how? All right. I was going to say the other. Another thing that you do is you play, you DM every other Wednesday.
Yes.
On your Twitch channel.
Yeah.
I say that we're live on Twitch now, but on your for your Tales Guild new role list, can you tell me about that campaign?
Yeah, so it's basically a 1920s setting campaign with a gang war and everything. You have all these different gangs trying to take over the city and everything. And it was really cool because I'm a big fan of noir-esque films and everything. That was my first special interest when it comes to movies and everything. And then that was kind of my way to sharing that love and everything, because I do like the aesthetic and everything. And then it was just like, now they're just kind of like, hey, we're gonna go to the Sealy Court and like mess with some Fays and everything. So it's just like, holy crap, let's go.
It's super fun. How long has that campaign been going?
Pretty much for about a year now and everything.
Yeah. It's 5 players. My brain.
Yes, 5 players. You have Abigail the Nerd, B does D&D, Sequo, Attack on Morgan, and that one Warlock.
It's super fun. I love a good mixed genre. Mixed genre, I don't know if this is the right word, but I love a good, like, it's not just high fantasy setting. I say that as someone who almost exclusively runs high fantasy settings. Because I also do like those quite a bit. I don't know what's visible on my wall behind me, but that is Gandalf smoking a pipe. So
I see that. Okay.
Yeah. It's over. I'm not point. It's over. It was a Christmas gift from my wife, and it's like a music sheet of concerning hobbits from the Lord of the Rings, and then like the Gandalf on top of it. And this is all that is gold does not glitter entire poem from the Hobbit. Look, it's wait. I have one more there. That's the list of Hobbit meals. All right, now I'm done listing the things that are nerdy on my wall behind me. I mean, how did you, in terms of world building, like obviously, like talking about like high fantasy versus like noir 1920s-esque, like can you talk me through like some of the world building that you had to do, like how to maybe even rethink in terms of like setting versus game mechanics, etc.
It was actually kind of easy because you're just starting off with one town. That's like your central hub base. And I really wanted just to like make this hub space kind of like a little place of everything that involves everything. It's just like this town that has like its own personality and everything. And like some of the players also involved, that one Warlock, he had a town that he wanted to like add for his character's backstory called Valley Crucis. And I was like, oh, that's cool, because I like that collaboration with like players into the world building, because I feel like I'm very much of a person of like, everyone helps collaborate in telling the story. It's not just the DM and everything. The DM kind of like lays the framework, and the players fill in the spaces of what they do and their choices.
Yeah. I mean, that makes. I mean, I also feel the same way. I would say, like, I talked to Brennan Lee Mulligan. I say that like I needed to clarify which Brennan. I said that to my wife once. I was like I said something about Brennan. And I was like, Lee Mulligan. She's like, there's only one Brennan you ever talk about, and I was like, that's fair. And we didn't get into it because it was literally like a minute left before our interview time slot was over, and he had a hard out. He had said something to me about that, like he basically doesn't consider DMs to be storytellers, because it's all for him. It's all what the players want to do. Which I think is such a like. I disagree with him, and I'm excited for whenever the next time I talk to him, because like I think it's what you described it is more how I think of it, that it is collaborative, but I do still see the DM as a storyteller. I love a good world building session with your friends, with your players, of just like, hey, what weird town do you want to have? Do you want to be from? Or what, like, do you want to build a neighborhood for this town? Great. Now there's a magical like Fey forest here that's Central Park, but it's from the Feywild. How much, like, how different for you is that process, like with a home game versus a streamed game?
I mean, there is kind of some pressure because you have like another big audience just like who's going to be watching and like enjoying it and everything. But I just treat it like every other show, because I'm a theater person in general and everything. So I treat every performance as kind of like, hey, the audience is just like, the main audience is like the players and like the DM, because if you guys are having fun and everything, that's just going to make things a whole lot easier to do with like no matter what kind of game you're running and stuff.
I think that makes sense. I've had very little actual play experience. I've been playing a bunch for a while, but like very little like time spent on the internet. The first time I DM'd publicly was for Brennan and Abria and the rest of that table for my charity one shot, which was a wild way to be like, hey, you guys have never seen me DM. What if I DM'd for 6 of the greatest players in the world? No pressure. But yeah. I mean, I do think it's really interesting, like that idea of. Like, I love the idea of like as a theater performance, I'm thinking of it this way. But obviously, there is such a huge difference because your games are live, right?
Yes, they are live,
and like that obviously makes such a huge difference because it is a matter of because I have made videos before where I've talked about like, hey, you know, if you need to take a break in your game because your players throw you for a loop, take a break. It's much harder to do that when you are live for an audience. You still technically could be like, hey, we're going to take a break, which I think is also a good policy to have. Be like, oh, my players just blew up everything I had like planned. Have you had any of those moments?
Yeah. I had this moment. Okay, so we have the first BBEG of the campaign was called the Rakshasa and everything. He was kind of like the leader of like this gang that was trying to take New Rollis back to the demons because that was their like first home and everything. And we had like this big like city war and everything. It was really, really cool. And B, she had like she previous before casted a simulacrum and everything. So there was 2 of them. So 2 other players I had to like worry about. I was like, all right, cool. And so they were separated and everything. It was Abigail, Sequo's, and B's character that was up against the Rakshasa and everything. And the Rakshasa was like on its death door. Was like, all right, we're just gonna like teleport away and everything. And then B's everyone was just like, you know what? No, we're gonna like I think it was Sequo who was like, hey DM, can I like do like some arcane bard trickery thing where I like tune my instrument to like the pitchfork as these dimension planes? So they all plane shifted to their base in the 9 hells. And I was like, all right, this could end badly and everything. We did Seiko's character died, but they were brought back after a little bit later, which only left B's simulacrum and everything. And B's final stand with the Rakshasa just destroying them and destroying my first BBEG of the campaign. That shifted to like a whole lot of things of like, okay, here we go. That threw me for a loop, but I was just like, I'm very much the person of like, you throw something weird at me, I'm always willing to like try and see where this goes.
Yeah. I've had similar experiences as well as oh man, there was one time I was playing with my players and they got like invited to dinner with like the big bad because he wanted to like threaten whatever. You know how big bads do. And they at the dinner I was like there to introduce the like lieutenants of the big bad. Then I could like have them fight for the rest of the campaign, and then but it was going to be like a little confrontation, then they were going to teleport away, and my players kept counterspelling when I was trying to teleport away, and I was like, you are outmatched. So every single one of these people is supposed to be a 1-on-4 of you fight. Like it's supposed to like that this is not balanced. You cannot win this. So finally I just had to like knock the bard unconscious because he just kept casting counterspell. And I was like, all right, I was like, if I can knock the one person who's got counterspell left unconscious, they can get away. Then I had to fully revamp everything else in the campaign because then I was like, wait, now why didn't they just kill him? Like that was when you teleport away the first time, just be like, yeah, we're just here to mess with you. But like, anyway? Your players are all players are bad. That's what I'm saying.
They're just creative. They're just like they find creative solutions, and just like there's always like the one solution you never expected, and it's like, all right, now I'm gonna put that little trick in my bag and prepare for the next one and everything.
Yeah. What's for you, like I said, like you know, I have the benefit of most of my games no one sees them other than like a handful of people that are sitting with me. obviously, like that does change things. I know you said like you're thinking about it from a theater perspective, but are you also thinking about like pacing and things in terms of, you know, like Critical Role gets away with like, we're gonna do a shopping episode. They're one of the few that I can think of where you're like, we're gonna do a full we're gonna do a full 4 hours that's just like prep work. Like I feel like most actual plays have started to move away from those sessions and just kind of like hand wave, yeah, you found your items, or at least like not spend all the time on it. Have you had to deal with balance of that?
Kinda, yeah. I felt that pressure and kind of like later on with like Neuralis, with because we're like nearing kind of like the end of like and everything. We only got like about a few arcs left, and I wanted to like make sure we get through everything, and like running like a new actual play channel is just like crazy hectic. So, but the players just kind of like sat me down and just said like, hey, we want to go at a pace that's like good for you, because I was burning out pretty hard, and I think that's what I learned from it, is that you gotta have those slice of life moments in your games to like be a breather for the players because they enjoy that stuff, and for yourself, because if you try to go on and like give like main plot storylines every single time, you are going to burn out really fast.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm not trying to say don't have a shopping episode.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes I like. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's games are fun. We should have fun
Yeah.
doing them.
Exactly.
The other thing, obviously, like you talked about, like the Rakshasa is like is the first BBG. When you're like trying to make a good BBG, like what's your strategy? Is it like they're kicking puppy evil? Are they oh well, from one perspective I could see why they have a good idea, but it's, you know, they're like, well, Thanos probably should have used the Infinity Stones to make more resources instead of destroy half the universe. But like I guess I get the problem.
Yeah.
How do you approach?
I think for me, it's very much having that connection with like the characters and everything, because the Rakshasa is very much connected to Attack on Morgan's character, Zelvi, and there's like this whole thing where she's kind of like actually worked with them in the past and everything, but like some memory spells and everything kind of like changed up everything. And I think just kind of like having them be kind of like an eternal force is just kind of like always interacting with them in some way, kind of like how why Strahd is so popular, because Strahd in himself is like this enigma that affects wherever you go, whether it's like talking to the citizens, like the hags, or like any other person, everything. As long as you have like your BBEG kind of like interfering with your players in some way, and occasionally saying hi and kind of like screwing with them a little bit, is just like, that's how you do it.
Yeah. But like on the scale of evilness, where are you landing, or does it shift for you?
Scale of evilness, it's kind of like, I like the psychological evil of this, of just kind of like almost gaslit gatekeep girl boss, but
Mhm.
in a way of it's like so petty. I'm just like, you guys are messing with my plans, I'm gonna mess with you back. Let's go. Okay.
Yeah, man, I love that. Similarly, obviously, like when you're creating a world, especially a world for an actual play, because obviously you always want to have memorable NPCs, but you want
Mhm.
memorable NPCs, I think, especially in an actual play, because you want your audience to be like, ah, yeah, it's my favorite, you know, it's Boblin the Goblin is back. I'm excited.
Yeah.
It, how, I mean, similar approach for you of like trying to tie in to characters,
Mhm.
or is it a matter of just like, I'm gonna populate my world with like weird, interesting folk?
It's kind of like I do build like some central characters for like each person and everything to kind of like go around, because we have like a hub space where the characters get to live in the Blind Dragon. There's like NPC romance with like between two of the favorite characters, Distill, who's the bartender, and Hilda, who is a clinic like doctor and everything. And just like the cast have like made faces and just kind of like really enjoyed like we started off like the flirtation between those two and just kind of like grew to like a romance, which I think is like a nice world building aspect, because NPCs can fall in love and fall out of love with each other and everything. And like also when like having characters that like have like NPCs, because that one Warlock's character, Connor, he's got like a whole sub city across like the way with Valley Crucis. He's got like his dad is like in charge of like this military outfit, and that was a lot of fun to do, and just have him kind of like have like this great showdown between each other, and that was like one of my favorite moments in that campaign.
Yeah. Yeah, I love when players come to me with, here are my like living relatives, and not because I want to kill them. That's not really the vibe that I bring. I want to be them and be especially if it's like I have a twin, we're antagonistic. I'm like, great, this is my favorite. You have given me such a gift. I get to just be an antagonistic twin that shows up periodically, that like has a won't say I love you, but like obviously does. Like it's such a fun character to get to play. I will also say, like, you mentioned something that I think about a lot in terms of like world building, which is, you said like NPCs can fall in love and can fall out of love, and I think that also, like, happens, I mean, at least should happen off screen as well, because obviously for basically every TTRPG and every actual play, you're spending the entirety of your time with like 5 allotted characters and their viewpoints, and I never want anything to feel like a video game where like there's just like a person's like, save my husband from the well, and then like you're like, I'll do that 30 hours from now, and like you just like go off and like do a bunch of other things, like, oh yeah, there was a well that I was supposed to go to. Okay, I was like, how do you think about it in terms of like making sure your world feels like it is like living, breathing, moving without just the characters' interactions?
I think it's just like the fact of just like how, like, if like one central key moment happens in an event and everything, how are NPCs going to react to it and everything? Because with B's character, Ajax, her character was very much of like, she captured a god and everything, which is a long story on that part. But long story short, deck of many things, shenanigans and all that stuff. And she was like, all right, I'm gonna let you free on the condition you don't go back to the bad guys. And the god was like, all right, cool. And so it only took one day for him to form like this little mini tiny cult and everything. And it was just like, and the god was already like, and this is my archbishop Ajax and everything. And so everyone was like, what?
That's super fun. Yeah, it's the question, problem, whatever, of like the Marvel Cinematic Universe of like, hey, there's a giant hand and face coming out of the ocean. We should probably talk about that again at some point. And Marvel's like, we'll see you in 5 years, or whatever, however long it was between Eternals and Hulk. Captain America. It wasn't a Hulk movie. It's I always do like that. It is really interesting, of like, especially because typically in like those kinds of games, your players do such big things, like it. And I don't know about you, but like how like my players often are also like, all right, I'm a red panda and this one's a raccoon and you have like the most distinct grouping of people imaginable. And then you're like, but they've also saved how are you not the most famous people in the world even without like television? Like you should be instantly, they should be like, hey, Rip and oh, I know this adventuring party. They just like stopped the god bomb or whatever like thing is going on. At any point are you I don't know what the question is here. Do you have to think about that in terms of like, hey, how famous are my players? How quickly?
Sometimes and everything. I did have like a one NPC that was kind of like was like a news reporter and was just trying to get like information because they were starting to get kind of like making headways and everything, and that was kind of like a me for them to get the party's name, the Hell's Rejects and everything that they come up with, and I was like, all right, cool. I was able to like weave that in and everything. That was nice and everything, and it was also kind of like reflective. And having kind of like very much of like gangs of like there's like fighting for like space into this town and everything certainly did kind of like help spread the news and everything to like, all right, this is what they're doing, this is what we're going for. And yeah, it's just having them reactive like that.
Yeah. Are there inspiration specifically for your world that you're pulling from? I mean, like you said, like 1920s noir type. Like you said, it was one of your first like special interests in terms of movies.
Yeah.
As hit me with your what are your best of, I suppose.
Best of like
that genre of
okay. You got the Maltese Falcon. That's always good. The Postman Rings Twice. Fantastic. I know it's not a noir film and everything, but I can't help but love Some Like It Hot because it's just like, yes, love it. And any good movie that has like Humphrey Bogart as like a curmudgeon like detective or like anything, it's just like, yes, give me that. Give me this pulpy action like drama filled with femme fatales and just like twists and turns, and just like it's always going to be a good time.
Yeah. It also feels like that genre feels like it lends itself so much to TTRPGs because it's the place where I think of when I think of like a MacGuffin and a red herring of just like it's coming from. I mean, I don't know what genre it comes from. That's where I think of when I'm like, when you say like Maltese Falcon, I'm like the MacGuffin. Yeah. What is it? Are those where you're pulling some inspiration from? Is it like what's driving that world?
Pretty much that. I would also say kind of like Fantasy High is also like a big inspiration because like we've had like settings of like, okay, a fantasy setting kind of like in like a modern day suburban area. Like that's really cool. Why don't we kind of like dial back the dial a little bit and see how it's like in a different setting where it's like there's no like really technology and everything. Well, there is some technology, but it's not like advanced technology, and just kind of like play around with that and everything.
Yeah. I mean, look, as someone who is obviously deep in the paint on Dimension 20, what brought you to the I don't know how to finish that sentence. What brought you to Dimension 20? I was going to call it the Holy Land, and that feels very weird.
That's how good.
Yeah.
I think it was like when there came a point with like watching Kurt Cole, I was like, all right, I want to see like what other people were doing and everything. And then like there was also like LA by Night, which I was like, yes, that was really cool. And then I found Dimension 20, which I really enjoyed because Critical Role and like had moments of like levity and like goofiness and everything, but it was also very serious at times and everything. And it's like sometimes you don't have enough spoons to watch like a 4-hour serious run playthrough and everything. So you need something goofy, light, and just like something to get you through. And Dimension 20 was like that. Other things was like, hey, we're kind of goofy and crazy and everything. Sometimes we take things serious, but not all the time and everything. I was like, there we go. And so it was actually the Sleeping City that really got me, that I just really loved. And I was just like, Cogrash is my favorite character. Yeah. My boy. Oh, yeah. Lordy.
So good. Yeah, it's funny. Like, mentioning, getting into like sometimes more levity, sometimes not, because when I was like opening up my calendar today, the name that I had put for our interview was Emotional Damage. And I absolutely had no idea why I had put. I was like, what was I doing? And like I opened up your website and it says it right at the top. And I was like, okay, that's why I did this.
Yeah.
But there was definitely a minute when I was like, well, is this a threat? Why did I call it this?
I sometimes my stories makes people cry. That was like beginning of like my TikTok social media career and everything, like telling sad D&D stories and everything. And that spawned off to like the Fighter Saga, and then I was just kind of like, I like telling the sad stories, but I always need a balance so that way I don't get burnt out and go really sad with all the sad stuff. So that's why I got like Pack the Father, which is kind of like a meta joke commentary on like D&D stuff and everything. And yeah, it's just like people have said like I'm like the king of sad eating stories and everything, and I've had some people just be like, "Hey, Dice, check out this really sad stuff." Like, no, why'd you do that? It's like, because you said you're the king, so I wanted to challenge the crown. It's like, yeah, I don't. Everyone gets the crown, okay? It's a everyone's community crown.
Yeah, you do really cool stuff in terms of like the fighter series, not just that they're sad, but like you do like really interesting stories that you tell on social on TikTok. Like those and like a lot of parts. Which I like one periodically I'm like, I have an idea for a series, and then I usually give up after like two. How do you keep them going?
I've always wanted to tell stories as a kid and everything. I've always been fascinated with telling stories and just like seeing like all these. I've read like a lot of Percy Jackson's books and like other series and everything. It's just kind of like how they're just like continuation of just like all these stories together. And it's like, that's really cool. I would like to have my own series where I was just like, it's kind of like continues on and just kind of like has like this episodic feel, but yet also a main story that's like continues on and everything. And it's just like, it's really just like that passion of telling stories and just wanting to share with the world and performing, which I just want to do and everything.
Yeah. Do you remember the first time like you got like, at least on like social media, because obviously like telling stories like with friends and everything, very different than like the first time like something hit on social media and you're like, oh, people like my stories.
Yeah, it was like kind of like the pilot episode of the Fighter Saga where like you had like Orlean dying for the first time, well, not for the first time, dying and everything, with like the party getting wiped out and everything. And then I saw a video from Patroness of Lore, who I will say really kicked off and gave the Fighter Saga a whole story and like solid ground to work on. She's a wonderful creator and everything. She's really, really cool. She had a character prompt called Darcy and everything, and I was like, I duetted her and everything, and we were just kind of like, she was like, hey yo, that was really, really cool, and I was like, you're really, really cool, and we're like, yeah, let's like build some story together and everything. And so it's like we really kind of like developed kind of like a great friendship with that and just like collaborating. And I've always said it before, but there is no Fighter Saga without Darcy, because that gave it the structure and key of like, all right, cool. Orlean was in that fight because he was trying to like get Darcy back from like the Crown Queen, the patron that's kind of like in charge of like all of her family's magical powers and stuff and everything.
That's super cool. Yeah, I love a good like you love a good collab. Look, that's why we're here. You love a good collab. The same thing with I know I mentioned Sound of the Forest, but man, because that clip went so wild, like so many people was like, the crossover I didn't know I needed, and I was just like, it's just her content, but like with me going, ew, gross, as she explains something about a bug. I don't know that there's that much. I don't know that I'm adding a ton to it. Except for she gets the joy of seeing me react to a horrifying new fact that I did not know. You mentioned storytelling, and that you've always wanted to storytell. You mentioned books that you've read. But what if you had written a book? Then, like, what would that be like, huh?
Well, I kind of already written a book and everything. It's called the Stolen.
I know what it's called. It's on my notes.
So I wrote that book with like a friend in high school and everything, because we were both like Percy Jackson fans and everything, and we wanted to kind of write a little bit more of a gritty, realistic one and everything. And we're kind of working on the sequel right now and everything, where we've just been kind of like busy with both of our lives and everything, because she runs kind of like a independent like bookstore and everything, and like I'm busy with like school and just like life in general and everything. So we're working on that. But if I would like to tell, I've also written like little transcribing Fighter Saga stories into short stories, which also been kind of like driving me to like write my own supplement for like the Fighter Saga world, which I think would be really cool. So it's just like I want to try everything because like any writing style, because like I'm also a playwright as well. I'm getting one of my plays read for school, which is cool opportunity. And like I like finding like different ways to like tell stories and like diving into that system to be like, all right, how can we tell the stories within the rules here? And then we break the rules and then we see what we can come up with.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super fun. You mentioned writing a supplement. What is it? Are you thinking like just world? Like, are you thinking like what? Are you going to write your own TTRPG? What's the goal? Well, I don't know the goal, but like, do you have long term plans with that?
I would kind of like make it to like a supplement for like a 5e setting and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of like I've done some basic homework of like doing the world building, building like certain towns and like factions and stuff and everything. And I'm having like fun with it and everything. I really wanted to get into it, but it's just like school has just been like really draining and everything. And my friends and team has just been like, Dice, you gotta, you wonderful being, you can't go too hard on this. But it's like my brain's like, I want to, and it's like, yes, you do, but we have to like take baby steps. So I've been like practicing like the world building within my other series with like Pack the Father and everything, and really exploring that world and all that stuff. So yeah, I would like to make it so like a 5e supplement that people can like use and everything, because I joked about it in the beginning of my TikTok career that I would make a supplement of the Fighter Saga world, and I am gonna keep to that promise. And one of these days, when I have like time and like energy, I will get that out to the world, because that would be the biggest dream. Because I've seen like Brandon the DM also was able to like get like his own supplements and everything, and I love Brandon the DM stuff. His stuff was really really cool. And I was like, hey, that'd be really cool to do. And yeah, I would like to leave my mark on the TTRPG space.
Yeah. So if you want to watch Dice burn out, get in the comments.
I can't burn out, man.
You want the supplement now. Are you going to be at any cons this year? Can people come up to you and demand a fighter world supplement?
Possibly. I might be going to a Power Rangers con with some friends and everything. I have to figure out my stuff and everything with like payment and stuff. I was planning on going to C2E2, but certain things with my life kind of like came up and everything. But I would like to go to like more cons in the future, like the Big Bad Con and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of like finding the funds and everything, because I've been to Gen Con twice and it was really fun and everything. But I want to explore the other types of cons that are just because Gen Con is just so huge. It's like you can be like very overwhelmed and stuff. I like to try like the other cons is just like very much of like here's for like networking and everything, because I really went to Gen Con last year as like a way to like network, which was a good time. I hand out my cards and everything. But
I think I have one somewhere on my table. It's there's just this, everything that is not directly in frame is a disaster.
Yeah,
and so like there was a pile of business cards that I had from Gen Con.
Yeah, and funny story, I actually put the wrong email on the card, and I was just like, no. So I was just like, I gotta double check everything. So hey, but I would definitely like to go to more cons, and I've going to Gen Con, just seeing so many people kind of come up to me and say like, hey, you're that guy. I was like, yes, I am. It was just kind of like, I have been seen. I have been seen, and then it's just like more people just say like how they like my stories and stuff. It's definitely like a dream come true.
Yeah. Gen Con was super fun. It was my first time going last year. I also was there for networking purposes, which was great. It was super positive. Highly recommend going to Gen Con if you want to network. But I was like, say like I'm going to be there this year. And I did not get lucky in the lottery for hotel draw, like when you get to book your room. So by the time I got my group was up, they were sold out, which is not great.
Yeah.
So like I've just been periodically checking because they people will cancel their rooms, and so like there are now rooms that are back available, but they're all like, oh, this hotel's only 15 miles away, and it's like, but I don't want to take a 30-minute car every morning and evening to this place. Yeah, it was super fun. I also like I had that very fun experience of like folks. I don't know. I guess for you at least. I don't know. Do people just like? Is it a lot of like dice, or is it a lot of like? I know you. You're the fighter guy. Like,
yeah, it was kind of like a mixture of both, because like I would hang out with like other like content creators that we kind of like agreed to like hang out and stuff, and then like some other people that I would like kind of like who were like also really big would be there, and it'd be kind of like, hey, you're Dice, and I'd just be kind of like fanboying out a little bit, like. It is just like it was nuts, but I also had some people kind of like walk up like, "Hey, you're the Dice guy," and I was like, "Yes, I am," and everything. So it was like it was like that.
Yeah. I get the like, you're the TikTok guy. I'm like, yeah, that's me. It's very funny. It was I was recognized this week the first time at a non like dropout related event, or like outside of like Gen Con or whatever. I was returning a ticket at a movie and at an Alamo Draft House, and the guy was like, what's your name? And I was like, Jordan Brown. He goes, are you the dropout guy? And I was like, this is weird. Yeah, I will also say at Gen Con last year, I've told this story before, but like I was hanging out with Taylor Moore from Worlds Beyond Number, and a lot of people were coming up to him to be like, hey, produce my podcast. That's not exactly what they were saying, but that was the subtext of it.
Pretty much.
And a lot of like, and I don't know who this guy is looking at me, and then like someone like would come up to me like, Jordan, I'm such a big fan, and then they're like, wait, now I do want to know who you are. I'm like, it's too late. You've already pushed me aside. It's Gen Con's weird, but it was very fun. I that was my what is it? I think just Gen Con maybe for me this year. I might try to do PAX U. That's the game one, right?
Yeah,
I never know what
that's the other
anywhere.
big one.
Yeah,
I've been wanting to go to, but it's just like I just need to first build up some money to like go off and everything, because it's expensive. It's so expensive.
Yeah, it certainly is. Because you also play video games on your Twitch channel.
Yes, I do.
Which I mean, another like big con, availability, whatever. There are cons for video games, PAX being one of them. I was at East and West last year as someone who basically doesn't play video games. It's because Iffy was like, hey, you want to come do actually live at both of those, and I was like, yes. But yeah, it's really interesting. Like, it's very strange. I don't know if it's the right word, but like there are so many cons now, and some of them are so specific. And every time I'm like, all right, what's the list of places I should go? I'm like, oh, there's 1,000. And also, for me, like, I want to go see the Dimension 20 live shows that are this year. Because I was at Madison Square Garden, I'll be at the Hollywood Bowl, and I technically have tickets for Seattle and Las Vegas. But I've not. Similar to like, gotta figure out how to afford this one first. But yeah, it's always strange. Like, obviously, like you talk about like burnout, but you know, like it's because it's, for me at least, it's not just content burnout. It's also the like, okay, now I need to go network, which is the most burnout I experience. Where I have to be like, you have to be sociable and approachable and not weird for like 4 straight days. Can you do it? How is I mean, obviously, like I also feel very reinvigorated when obviously someone comes up and they're like, I love your work, because that's crazy every time. You get more used to it, but it feels good every time. How are cons for you? A similar vibe of just like, oh, I'm tired now.
It's like a take and pull, because like in the beginning I was very much kind of like hiding all my nerd stuff and everything. It was like in the middle school and high school, and now that I'm like a college adult student, it's like I don't care anymore. I want to love the stuff that I've just kind of like neglected to like really enjoy. So it's like it's very fulfilling and freeing. But also being autistic in a con is just so crazy. It's like so many things are happening at once, and you're just like very hyper aware of everything. And like I was so glad there was like a cool down room in
Mhm.
like Gen Con you could go to and everything, because I went there with a couple of my friends and stuff, and it was so I could just like calm down and like relax. It was like it was very comforting. But yeah, always have a buddy with you at cons, because that's going to be good. And always find the place where you can like cool down, because that's also important. Because if you're like hanging, because we always hanged up like in the rafters and everything, one of the bridges up in Gen Con.
Mhm.
But that was like a nice place to cool down a little bit. But also just like just you need, if you need like a quiet dark space, there will be probably one room for that and everything.
Yeah, that's incredibly good advice. Yeah, I also, can I do my big brag of the
Of
thing? Like, this
course.
came from Gen Con. So like,
Yeah, brag about it. Brag
uh,
about it.
I met the McElroys and their handler at Gen
Oh
Con, which was very
yeah.
fun. And like got to interview them because of that. But the cool thing, because this hasn't happened yet,
Yeah.
and they don't watch my channel, so I'm not afraid of them seeing
Yeah.
this. But they do a live, or they do a show, the McElroy Family Clubhouse, on their
Nice.
YouTube channel.
Okay.
And one of the new segments that they have started doing is they show a mural from a Firehouse Subs,
Ooh.
which is a chain restaurant, sub sandwiches, obviously. And apparently, every single one of them has a giant mural in it that has been painted by the same person.
Ooh.
And they are bonkers. Like,
Okay.
it's like firefighters fighting a dragon, or like
Oh my god.
the like 6 local like college mascots in a battle royale on top of a fire truck. Like,
Nice.
it's so weird. And there's one really close to me, and the first time I saw that segment, I was like, I know where there is one. I'm gonna go look at this. And so I like went there the next time I was driving past it. It walked in, took a picture of the mural, walked out, and emailed it to Amanda at the McElroy Family. And she was like, "It's going in the queue. This is amazing." And I was like, "Yes!"
Yeah.
So like every week I tune in and like, is this gonna be the week where I get to see my picture of? Because mine is it's a firefighter handing, I think, a sub to
Okay.
a dragon. So they are friends in this one. They're
Yeah.
not doing battle.
Okay.
And I don't have any idea why that would be the case. But it made it, like, I walked in and I was like, I'm so happy that I stopped. I want to stop at every single one I ever see, because I'm just like,
Yeah.
what's the weird thing you have painted across an entire wall in your store? Anyway,
Yeah.
all because of Gen Con. Thank you, Gen Con.
Yeah. I at one of the content creators party, I did meet like Travis McElroy in passing and everything.
Mhm.
And then when my friends were like, "Hey, you should go say hi," and I was like, "No, it's because social anxiety and stuff." And they were like, "I bet." And then they just kind of like dragged me over and said hi and everything. And I was like, "Ah."
Yeah. I will say, having seen both, because Travis and Griffin were both there.
Yeah.
I think it was the Hunters Entertainment Party.
I think
and it was very funny because Travis like bounced back and forth between groups to like talk to people, and Griffin just like kind of posted up, which meant like a semicircle of people formed around him. And I was like, oh, you can't stop moving. You got to keep going. If you're that level of famous here, if you stop, people are gonna be like, hey, I have a world that I built that I would like to pitch you. And it's like, oh no, you got to get out of there. It's very funny seeing, so like, obviously, like getting starstruck by someone like Brennan was at that convention, was at that party for about 30 seconds. And you're like, oh my god, it's blank. As well as then like having someone come up to you, be like, I'm such a big fan. Be like, wait, what's happening? No, there are way better people in the room than me. But I will say, at least for me, I always appreciate it. I assume you do as well. It feels very validating.
Yeah, it does. It feels validating, because if someone is like looking at your art and your work and saying like, hey, I like this work, and it's like, thank you. Because I feel like sometimes people get lost in the sauce a little bit of just like that instant gratification of like, all right, here's this thing I did, let's get like super famous off of it and everything. But I think like the true treasure and fancy jewelry and everything that you want is like just like that admiration from people who just like your work and stuff. That is like the true food.
Yeah. Oh man, 100% agree. Well, if people wanted to support you and your art, did you see that transition there? Where can they find you, and how can they do that?
I am I'm working on like transferring all my stuff to YouTube. So YouTube, Dice and Autism. I have a Ko-fi where you guys can get like special stuff and everything. Like you could even like cameo in like in the Pack the Father universe. So if you want that and everything, I have a Twitch, same username and everything. I'm basically all over the place, but we're moving YouTube to be our main hub space to telling more stories and everything. Since TikTok is like,
yeah, who knows? Again, we're recording this. TikTok still exists in the United States, but by the time this releases, who's to say?
Yeah,
Dice, this was so much fun. Thank you so much. I don't know how to end an interview, so I'm just gonna hit stop recording.
Okay.